I'm pressing on, they are good pain.
You are some gaining every day. Praying hands along the ground. Up on my feet, on higher ground. Lord, lift me up and let me stand. I faith on heaven's thankful land. And I have played, and I have found. Lord, on my feet, on higher ground. My heart is long, desires to stay. And thus around, and tears dismay. The sun may dwell, and these abound. What can my faith is higher ground? Lord, lift me up and let me stand. I faith on heaven's thankful land. And I have prayed, and I have found. Up on my feet, on higher ground. I want to live above the world, where Satan stands. I feel a hurt, hoping the sun is not on sound. Let someone say, on higher ground. Lord, lift me up and let me stand. I faith on heaven's thankful land. And I have prayed, and I have found. Up on my feet, on higher ground. I want to stay and go strong, and catch a glimpse of glory bright. I still have faith to learn and ground. Lord, lift me up to higher ground. Lord, lift me up and let me stand. I faith on heaven's thankful land. And I have played, and I have found. Up on my feet, on higher ground. Lord, lift me up and let me stand. I faith on heaven's thankful land. And I have prayed, and I have found. Up on my feet, on higher ground.
Good morning. Sure glad to see you here. Thanks for coming to hear this report. Here's kind of what we're going to do. I'm going to share just a little bit about the purpose of the trip and kind of the details of what we did. I'll cover that very briefly. And then we're going to let Mary, Frank, and Philip come up and talk about their experiences and the things that they saw that affected them. And then if we have any time after that, we'll have a few more words just about next year's trip and how you can be a part of that and things like that. So let's go ahead and get started with a prayer. Father God, we just thank you so much for the day, for the blessings of this life, for your love that you have showed throughout time and history, and how you have touched our lives and brought people into our lives that change us and impact us and mold us and help shape us along with your Spirit to be more and more like your Son Jesus. Thank you, Father. Father, thank you also for opportunities to use the gifts and talents that you've given us to share and encourage others. Thank you for those that went on this trip, not only the ones from here at Memorial, but from all over the U.S. and other places, Father, that they use their talents to bring glory and honor to your name by teaching others and encouraging others. Father, thank you for this congregation and for its foresight 56 years ago to be part of this work and to continue backing it and supporting it. And Father, I just pray that you be with Southern Africa Bible College, its staff, students, and alumni, and bless them in their work and the fertile fields in which they operate. We love you, Father, and it's in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, so the purpose of our trip, this is the group that went. We had 17 people total from 2 different countries, one from Togo, West Africa, and then the rest from here in the States, Idaho, California, and of course Texas and Oklahoma. We spent 14 days over there in South Africa, and the goal was to, number one, encourage and uplift, to build up the people that were there to be on campus at Southern Africa Bible College and lived in the dorm with the students, hung out. We did 2 Bible teacher workshops and church leader workshops. One at the campus where we had 160 attendees from all over the Johannesburg area at that seminar. And then we drove 6 hours north. 6 hours. We told it was 6 hours. It was 8.5, seemed like, or more. And to a place called Venda, which is absolutely beautiful. Lush, green, hills, waterfalls, avocados that were that big. It was incredible. So anyways, it's a beautiful place. The church there is about 800 members, and they've asked us to come up and do these workshops. Not only have they grown that church to 800 members, they've planted 60 other churches in that area. So they're trying to encourage all those congregations to get better at teaching Bible classes. So that was one of our purposes. Then we had in-depth conversations with folks, just to get to know people, just to encourage them in that way, learn about them, and hopefully teach them something as they taught us. And then also we visited local ministries. The one on your right is Agape Flows, a ministry started by one of our graduates that many of you donated to last year, that provides sanitary pads, education, and the gospel message to girls in need. And then the one on the left is the Noah's Ark Ministry, is a church in a squatter camp where they feed about 150, 200 kids every day. And they've also planted a church there that's now probably about 50 members or so. And then we worshiped at local congregations where our graduates preach and lead. And so we got to visit congregations all over Johannesburg area as well as up in the Venda area, and had a good experience there. The one in the yellow building, that's the church plant that's just started. They're meeting in a daycare. And then the one on the right is the Meadowlands congregation, a very established congregation, about 350 members. So we had a big variety of congregations to go to. And then we also experienced the beauty of South Africa. We couldn't go over there. Nobody got eaten by a lion or trampled by an elephant. As much as we tried to push Philip out there, he still came back with us. But it was a great experience. And so those are the purposes of the trip, and let me let you hear from the people that went on the trip. And we'll start with Mary Shanks.
I love all the ones he did. Yes, that trip said 6 hours, but y'all, it was 8.5 or 9. I found all kinds of ways to sleep, and they caught me, but that's okay. I had a wonderful time. Thanks to Memorial for sending me. Frank and Philip and Kirk took good care of me. They told some of the people in South Africa that they didn't want to tell Chris they lost me. So that was one of the things. I will have to say, one time, it's really different. There's a lot of different things there. Kirk was trying to help me get out of a bathroom. You went in through this bars, and coming out, I was trying to come out the wrong way. We got to where we were laughing so hard I couldn't get out. But anyway. And another thing is, thanks to Matt Bell, he upgraded me for that I could have some really on the long flight, and it is a long flight, and I really appreciated that, and I've talked to Matt about it. And my trip to South Africa was life-changing, and more importantly, it was faith-building. It was excellent. The students and the professors were awesome. I was not expecting to fall in love with the students like I did, but I did. Do I know all their names? And can I pronounce their names? No. But they were awesome. They go to classes we visited some of the classes, Greek 1, 2, and 3, and Hebrews 1 and 2, and oh my, they are, I was like, oh, I really need to start studying some more. But the favorite part, of course, like I said, was the students, and I enjoyed it. But, I am a teacher, taught for almost 40 years. I love it. And there were some teachers there. They are like Kirk we talked about just now. about like we were 50 years ago. They do not have like materials in their classroom. So pretty much what I did is I took one thing, and I'm going to show you kind of what I did. I took the fruit of the Spirit and I explained to them, even though they only have the Bible, that they can do at least 9 lessons from the fruit of the Spirit. There's a song called The Fruit of the Spirit. I taught them the song. The fruit of the Spirit's not an orange. Fruit of the Spirit's not an orange. You got an orange, you might as well eat it, 'cause it's not the fruit of the Spirit. The fruits are love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. I taught them the song. We went over it, and I explained to them how that they could do just from the Bible, like love. I would talk to them about Jesus feeding the 5,000. I showed the book, and then I would do songs, or I would do something else that would go along with it. And they all of them got a huge packet of things, material. So it wasn't that I was just talking to them and it went over their head. They could follow along. Then I did one where I talked about Zacchaeus, and this was joy. Sang the song, of course. And then, of course, I did things like what is joy. And this one I did a little experiment. I had water, and then I said joy that comes from the Lord, and I put food coloring in it, colored the water. Then I explained happiness. Happiness is fleeting. And I put in oil, and it just sat on the top. And they all just kind of looked at it. And then later, some of the ladies wanted to talk about it. They'd never thought about it like that. So I tried to do little experiments even. So I went through all the love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and taught them how they had. So like one lady said, finally at the end, she goes, "Oh, we have 9 Bible lessons here." So that's, and I wasn't the only one. Oh, and I did things like I took sock puppets and, and I explained to them, and we did little activities with them, and that they could just have a sock and have a puppet show. And so they seemed to like that, and they loved the songs. And I explained to them, how am I doing on time? Okay, I explained to them that if they can't remember the tune, just make it up. It's okay. The kids don't know. I don't know. I don't care. But I love the teaching. I'll have to tell you, the first meeting, the first one, the lady was like this, looking at me. And I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting. Finally, she told me that she really didn't want to teach kids because she didn't know how. And at the end of the thing, she told me, she says, maybe I'll try it. So I think, that little bit made me feel really good. But they were great, and they enjoyed it, and they enjoyed some of the experiments and things like that I did with them. I'd go back in a heartbeat, and I have all kinds of ideas, and I love teaching. So it was funny. We had I want to say this, there were some other great people that did things too. They were really wonderful. We had about, 6 or 7 classes? 6 or 7 different teachers that taught different things. Now, when we were in Venda, that was different. We didn't break into classes. It was one big auditorium. The teachers stayed in the auditorium, and we talked to them. But I would have to say, okay, and this is about the fruit of the Spirit, and then I have to wait while they translated. And then, I just keep going on, and I had to figure that out. And then I would say, and this is, and then they'd have to translate. And then sometimes they'd look at me, and I could tell, okay, I've talked too fast, I've talked too much, and it was hard for them to translate. So that was an interesting thing. Also in Venda, that was on the Saturday. On the Sunday, Kathy, who is from Oklahoma, and I were asked if we would go to this other church and observe their lesson. We thought that's what it was. We got there. There were 55 kids in one room, 3 to 15, no, 13, sorry, 3 to 13, 55 kids, one teacher, and it was kind of hot in there, I'll be honest. And also, nothing. They had one Bible that was kind of torn up, nothing. And we were in there and we were to teach for an hour and a half. So we did all kinds of things. We taught, we went through my lessons, we went through Kathy's lessons, we did singing, we did puppets, and we were getting to the end and we were both like, oh my, this is an hour and a half is a long time with 55 kids, guys. So I thought, this is my faux pas. One thing that I really goofed on. I thought, okay, with the little ones, I'll sing Fuzzy Caterpillar. So I got up and I got all the little ones and we were singing Fuzzy Caterpillar and they gave me this look. And they wouldn't do it. But when went to the butterfly thing, they would do the butterfly. Come to find out, finally, one of the ones, the young ones that was speaking English said, well, we eat caterpillars. Okay, so Fuzzy Caterpillar is not a song I'm going to sing again if I go back. Also, when we were leaving, there was a single mother said she was trying to make money, and she had this Ziploc bag of dried caterpillars she wanted to know if we'd like to buy. And Kathy and I both went, no, thank you. I mean, we know she needed the money, but I'm sorry. And the kids also told us about how good, and also Lawrence that went with us, how good that termites are. You know? No, thank you.
This is not our regular diet, by the way. This
No.
is not what we eat when we're there, okay?
I have a lot to say, and some of it, but we wore these little things called, or little name tags, and mine just said Mary USA. So Kirk took us to the grocery store. I'm bad out of time. I'm sorry. I have a lot to tell you. I won't tell you that story because I have a few other things I want to do. One thing that when we were at the services, they would sing most of their songs in Zulu or Afrikaans. And by the third verse, we would finally figure out the tune. But then we never sing the third and fourth verses usually. And so we couldn't sing along anyway because we couldn't do that. Then the dorms, I know he's going to talk about that. The dorms, they're okay, guys, but they're pretty plain. They need a little bit of help. They haven't been updated. This is something Kurt he did not realize. But in the women's side of the dorm room, they do not have mirrors in the dorms, in their rooms. They had mirrors in the bathroom, but they're like the British. There's no plugs in the bathroom. So no hair dryers or anything in the bathroom, but no mirrors in the room. I know men don't think that's a big deal, but we women do, don't we? I just want to tell a couple of little things and then my time is up. South Africa loves KFC. Kentucky Fried Chicken is on every corner. We're not kidding. That's one of their favorite things. There were some McDonald's, but other things, but it was mainly KFC. Another thing that they really did like was, they like Coke and Dr. Pepper and ginger beer. That was a big deal. No Dr. Pepper, if you're kind of like me. Tea time was important, but the kids, the students, they would take like 4 slices of this white bread that was kind of like, anyway. And they ate things called Melly Pop, and my time is up, and I had so much I wanted to tell you. But I would love to ask anybody have a question. I'd love to talk to you about it, and thank you. I loved it.
Thank you, Mary. Mary did not talk much while we were there. It was a great trip. Oh.
This is my other son, Mike, and my grandson, Cullen.
Welcome. We're so glad y'all are here. I got to tell you guys, this was an incredible trip. If you can be a part of it, be a part of it. For me, this started, I'd have to tell you, 13 years ago, because I dodged the bullet for 13 years of not going. Was this the 13th trip? And for years, Kirk had tried to get me to go on this trip, and I got so many things going on in my life. I got business, I got all these things. I can't be gone 2 weeks, and you make all these excuses. This year, there was a meeting called up here in October. Ben Little, great guy, a preacher from South Africa, was there. Kirk, Ben, Philip Bailey was in the meeting. Terry was supposed to be there too. He couldn't be there that day. But it was sent out to all the elders that we were going to have a lunch, bring your own lunch type thing. I walked into that day at 11:30 in the morning, and Philip and Kirk and Ben were sitting there. And I thought, because I was right on 11:30. I didn't get there early. I walked in, sat down, and a conversation was going on, and I turned around to Philip and said, "Where is everybody?" And he said, "Everybody was notified." And I said, "Oh," and I mean, actually, when I walked in and saw it was just those 3 people, God was pressing on my heart, and he was telling me, I could just feel it. I knew where I was going and what I was going to be doing for that 2-week period of South Africa, and made that commitment, and when you really Mary mentioned being faith building. I can't tell you how faith building this was for me, in that from the moment I made that commitment and really threw myself down before God and said, "Okay, I'm going to do this. Help me, show me what I'm going to do, show me how I'm going to say it." God started just laying things out for me that I just, in your normal daily life, in my normal daily Bible reading, I've never been a huge person on Mark. Mark's a great book of the Bible. Don't misunderstand me. I love Matthew, all the details. I love Luke's, my favorite book of love. I love John's, my actual favorite. Luke, I like all the detail that Luke and the perspective it brings to it. Mark was always a little dry to me, but boy, not now. My entire presentation was made up of Mark 10, 11, 12, and 13. It's like God was just like whack, 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 telling me this is what you need to use as far as talking about church leadership. And so it was a great moment for me, not just now or at that time, but it's a great moment for me moving forward. This place was incredible. I got to tell you that we got there. We put our first presentation on Saturday after we arrived on Thursday evening, and we had Friday that we're interacting with the kids and the things at the school there. First presentation was on Saturday. Kirk had worked really hard to get it all scheduled. It was a big room presentation. Women were in one area, men were in this other area because the women's was more focused on the kids' teaching, as Mary talked about. We were talking about leadership. Some of us were. There were different facets that were covered. But Kirk had it set up for the big room, and he had a conference room. And I had it all in my mind. Well, I'm going to be in the big room first. Everybody will hear it. Then we can get in the conference room for the second session, and people can ask intimate questions about things that they saw, and we'll be able to talk about those. I get the schedule, and I look at it, and I'm in the conference room first. And so I'm thinking, oh, my goodness, they're not going to have heard this isn't working the way Frank wants it to work. And we get to the meeting, and I walked in the meeting in that conference room when it was the time for it, and there was only one guy sitting at the table. And I said, okay, Lord, I guess this is me and him, and this is what we're about. Just as we were about to start, the room filled up with 7 more people, and it was a close-by congregation, Davington. Is the name of the congregation, probably 300 or 400 people in that congregation. We sat at that table, and I was able to do that same presentation that I was doing in the big room also, but I did that presentation with that group. And there was more interaction and discussion, and these guys were stimulated, and they were saying, oh man, we got these ideas. And the main point of the presentation was leadership should be all about, just as Jesus said, he came not to be served, but to serve. And the first question he asked, like blind Bartimaeus, when he was walking along, and the first question he asked him was, what do you want me to do? What do you want? And I said, that's really what we are as leaders. And all these things just became crystal clear to me, but it stirred it up, and you could see the excitement of these guys, and you can see the difference that it makes. Mary talked about the trip to Vinda. Long bus ride, as Kirk said, but you get to see beautiful countryside in South Africa on the way there, and it was a wonderful place. Vinda, where it's located, the town that we were in and the congregation we were at, these people are not super well off by any means. I mean, it is they work for what they have, and they work hard at it. This congregation is 40 years old probably at this point, older. older. Probably goes back as old as this congregation here, probably to the 60s is where it goes back to, early 60s. And one of the gentlemen who was an elder there was 87 years old, and he said, we were standing outside before church started on Sunday, and he was standing there, and someone said he was 87, and I said, whoa, you don't look 87. And he said, yeah, you know why? And I said, why is that? And he said, one wife, no smoking, no drinking. And so that's rules of life to live for right there, guys. But this congregation at Venda, talking to their leaders and about what they do, they've planted 65 churches since they have been there. Their goal, this 87-year-old man said, my goal is that we have 100 before I pass. That's all they're focused on. And I got to talk to them about how they did it. And yeah, they live in a different world than we do, and they're able to do some things different. But they use Southern Africa Bible College to supply the preachers that they need to make these plants. There was a young man who was there who we became very close to, Stanley. And Stanley is close to graduation. He's already committed to go back to what he told me before we went late at night one night, because we're in the dorm with the kids. And late at night, I walked in his room, and we talked about going that week to Venda. And he turned around and he looked at me with a big smile, and he said, you get to meet my people. Oh, sorry, I get emotional about this. But it was just an incredible trip that we did get to meet his people and interact with them and work with them. And talk to them about what they do. And they've got someone at their congregation who finds people who come from a common area, and then they send those people. It may be only 2 or 3 couples that they go, and they send them back to that place where they're from to begin a church. And they send one of these young graduates to go with them. And I said, well, how do you support that young preacher? And he said, well, quite honestly, he says, we only have 3 preachers out of the 65 congregations that are full-time supported by their congregation. The rest of them all work, and then they're supplemented by that congregation somewhat, but they have to work to be able to, and they preach as another part of their life along with that, the prominent part of their life. So it's just an amazing place. It's amazing to see what we can do with those. And back to South African Bible College itself, you stay in the dorms right there with the kids. And Kirk asked the question at the end, do you think we should go someplace with better accommodations? I can tell you, you can't interact with the kids and form the relationships that we have now with those kids without having been there and been there in the dorm with them. And that was a great plan. Mary's right. The dorms are pretty simple. I can tell you the guys' rooms don't have any mirrors in them either, but I was kind of glad about that. But the trip was just a magnificent trip. Even down, I'm going to tell you this one last story. I was talking about how God just kept touching me and just leading me and showing me and providing for me the entire way through this entire trip. Just before we left to go, I've had the same Bible since I was baptized way back in 1985, December 5, 1985. It's got all my notes in it. I've had to have it recovered. I've got a little marker in here, a bookmark that Dustin made for me, my youngest made for me when he was about 5 years old. And I thought 2 weeks before we went that I had lost my Bible. And I was near tears over this thing. I thrashed this place thinking I'd left it up here on a Sunday night. Got everyone in the building, high alert, find Frank's Bible, please. It was a mess. I stopped on the way back to the office after not having been able to find it here and bought a new Thompson's Chain Reference Bible and told myself, okay, I just have to build and move forward from here. Went back to the office. That day I walked into our bedroom where I always keep my Bible, and my Bible was only about 14 inches from where I keep it all the time. But that's to say, I told Janine at that point, I said, I guess I could take it back. I've got the receipt. And I said, no, I'll keep it because you never know. I might need it. This might happen again. I might need that Bible. And I looked at her and I said, I'm not taking that Bible back. God bought that Bible for a reason. I'm taking it with me. I took it with me. Saturday, that first day, when we put the program on, before we even started, I was going around meeting people, and I met a man named Dorian, and we hit it off immediately. Lunchtime, I was in that conference room late for lunch, and so I didn't get to lunch till after everybody pretty much finished lunch because we stayed in there talking. They were so excited about the things we were talking about. I get to lunch, and I pulled a chair up next to Dorian, and I sat down with him, took my box lunch, and sat down over with him, and we continued our conversation we'd had earlier. And he told me, he says, I had to give, I didn't have to. He said, I gave my Bible to someone who needed it. And he said, now I'm using, and he said, I bought a cheap Bible, but he said it fell apart in a hurry. So he said, now I'm using my daughter's Bible as he's doing these Bible studies with people. And I said, Dorian, hold on a second. I ran upstairs to my room. I got the Bible out. It's still in the box. I took it in the box even and brought it down, and I handed that to him. And he was in tears. God will use you in mighty ways. And he uses us when we throw ourselves before him. And we all know it. We've all been in really low troughs. We've all been in times of excitement. But it's times like this when you can make a contribution and you can help these kids and you can help the program and you can help the Lord's kingdom, that don't be like me. Don't take 13 years to step up. That's all.
So before I get into any comments, Tom King is one of the directors of the school, and Tom's wife, Linda, is having surgery, a heart ablation, has a serious heart difficulty, and just want to be sure that we keep Linda in our prayers. So, next. So after, is that actually, do we have sound?
Yeah, the volume comes up.
So after a 20-hour plane trip, we were all exhausted, and when we showed up, this is what reception we got that evening. One of the things I love about what Bible College is teaching these students is that so many times people come out of college or come out of an advanced education pretty cocky. And then Paul says, knowledge puffs up, but love builds up. And one of the things that the school is teaching these students is to give yourself to menial jobs. So when we showed up, that we were absolutely not allowed to take our bags to our room. That was part of what the students did. They are assigned during the week to everything from moving chairs to washing dishes to helping in the kitchen to cleaning, really a way to be servants. And one of the great aspects of the school is to really turn out not only knowledgeable students in the Word of God, but also to be humble and to be servants. This is a picture of a typical meal. There's a huge area that's like a gymnasium that's kind of the general meeting area, and that's where we had our meals and many of our meetings. And you can see that I guess got the back of Frank's head here, and then we go to the other end of the table, and we all just mixed with the students and got to, as Mary said, we got to go to class with them, we ate with them, we went on field trips with them to really get to know them. Next one. Can you play that one for me? Mary, I don't know if you knew I got this. This is Mary singing Zulu. She did a pretty good job. Mary and I were you've heard the odd couple, we were the old couple. And that was a lot of fun. Can anybody pronounce his name? This is a typical name in South Africa, and one of the students. I think Mary and Frank have told you most of the stories. I think the other thing I would share with you that was a blessing is that especially from a workshop standpoint of leadership, I don't know how to say this politically correct, but the elders most of the elders in South Africa tend to be pretty austere and kind of separated. And as one person said, our elders are over here and the rest of the congregation is over here. There's a little separation there. And so one of the blessings that we had was, and I'll let Kirk talk about this if he wants to, but they got to see a relationship with elders that is kind of unusual over there. And Frank and I have we were just blessed to happen to be there together and to see a love and a joking and but a working together was I think very important as part of that. I would encourage you, as Mary and Frank have, to go to this, we call it a short-term mission. You know, when it takes 20 hours to get there, that's hardly a short term. But I can tell you that there are some wonderful changes. Kirk's going to talk about some of the changes that we're wanting to instill. There's changes that are going on in the school. I ask you to pray for the board, which is Fred Berg and Hubert Ramagwetti and Tom King. I ask that you pray for those of us stateside, specifically Kirk. Terry Montgomery and I are liaison elders to the missions, but I specifically want you to be sure and keep Ben Bales and Matt Bell in your prayers as heading up our missions program. Fred Berg keeps saying over and over again, the church wouldn't be what it is in South Africa were it not for Southern Africa Bible College, and that is so true. And they are revived. The students, when they graduate, are not only going out and establishing new congregations, but in many cases are reviving congregations that have that were dying or were dead. And to God be the glory of all of that.
One of my favorite quotes is an elder from a congregation that after hiring one of our graduates, it had been around 50 years, but after hiring one of our graduates, it grew from 100 members to 200 members and then appointed his first elders and deacons. And the guy said in a video, and I can share it with you, but he says, you know, Southern Africa Bible College, this is our future. You can have a congregation without one of the graduates, but if you have one, they have thought critically about Scripture. They've thought critically about how to grow congregations, how to help people mature. This is our future. So that's one of my favorite quotes. By the way, great news that I'm telling everybody this year is that in 2022, South Africans contributed, there's the first year South Africans contributed over 1 million rand to the college, which is huge. It's grown 11 out of the last 13 years, how much they give. But last year they gave over 1 million rand. That's a huge milestone. Okay, so what is a successful mission effort? Well, I hope we could all agree that a successful mission effort is one that evangelizes, one that brings people to Christ, right? Okay, what else? Well, it's one that helps people mature and grow in their faith and become leaders and then reach out to other people. Yeah, okay, that's good, yeah. What else? Well, it's one that supports itself, that gives back financially, that they mature to a level where they support their own works and they reach out and serve other people in their communities. Yeah. What else? Well, it's one that provides its own leadership, that it gets to the point where it is the one taking control. Thank you to Memorial, 56 years ago, seeing this as a viable work that now has its own leadership, teaches people to evangelize, helps grow congregation, helps people mature in their faith. The number of congregations in South Africa is now over 450. That's just in South Africa. We've got graduates in over 50 countries around the world. And then they're starting also now to support it and to give back to it. So thank you for being part of a successful mission effort. I do want to take a minute and mention, by the way, we might have a time for a question or two. Somebody has a question in a minute. I do want to mention this year we have a goal of raising $100,000 to renew the dorms. Memorial helped build these dorms. Many of memorial members' names are on these dorms in different rooms and things like that. And it's 30 years now. They're 30 years old. And so we're doing a $100,000 campaign to revamp the dorms. And we're going to revamp a dorm room. You can do that for $1,200. The chapel, our classrooms, the chapel, the kitchen, and the main room. Of course, we also need batteries to go along with our solar panels. I'm surprised nobody talked about the electricity outages. Have rolling blackouts. That was she was going to cover that. Rolling blackouts every day, so the batteries really make a difference. We got those batteries probably 3 years ago, and the solar panels, and they just need more batteries to go with it. So if you're interested in helping out with something like that, I've got some handouts back in the back, or I'm happy to answer any questions for you. Okay, we're going to wait on that. We got time for a question or two. If you have a question for any of these guys about their trip. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, the women that graduate, what do they go on to do? So a lot of different stuff. Our typical female graduate, our student is 18, 19 years old, right out of high school. And they will come there for 1, 2, or 3 years and get the bachelor's degree, because we are an accredited college. And with that, they can go on for an honors degree, which is one more year of study, and not quite a master's, but above a bachelor's. And they can do education, they can do counseling, social work, something like that. So that's typically what they do. But as one of the graduates said, the female graduates, this is about the church. I'm gonna go off, I'm gonna do social work or whatever, but I'm gonna teach ladies, I'm gonna teach children, I'm gonna be doing this work in the congregation. That's what it's about. So yeah, great question. Yes, sir. How many of the female students are spouses to the male students that are studying there? This year, I would say maybe 1 or 2. In the past, it's been more, but this year I think it's just 1 or 2. Like I say, the typical female student is 18, 19 years old. Yes, sir.
Does the government regularly recognize the churches and the college and put up any roadblocks, or how is that?
The government in South Africa is very liberal. They don't put up any roadblocks. We are accredited by the South African government to offer a bachelor's degree, so we have the same accreditation as University of South Africa and University of Pretoria. So they don't have any problems there. As far as the churches, Christianity's a major part of South African religion, so we don't get any trouble there. They don't quite have the Islam influence that they do in other countries. Yes, sir. Do the students come from South Africa or other places? So we've had students come from over 30 countries around the world, mostly those Southern Africa countries, but also Ghana, Ethiopia, Kenya, things like that. Right now, most of them are from South Africa and Zimbabwe. And that's partly due to the politics in South Africa. South Africa's got a problem with illegal immigration a lot more than we ever imagined. So it makes it stickier to get in. Other questions? Let's talk about the next trip. April of 2024 is when we're planning to go again, doing the same things. This has been successful. This congregation in Venda has invited us back for that 8-hour bus drive. Now, wait a minute. A part of that, by the way, was that some folks, some Americans, newbies, decided to go to a sit-down restaurant in South Africa for lunch while we were on a break. Well, that's an hour and a half right there. Terry and I spent 3 hours at one place for a quick lunch one time. So, that was part of the problem. But otherwise, it was a very comfortable bus, and it was a good ride. So, anyway. Yeah.
And also on the bus ride, the later it got, we started singing songs.
Oh, yeah.
It really was an inspiration.
There was a group that sang for 3 hours one afternoon. Just people coming and going and things like that. So, thank you. Really appreciate you coming to hear about this. Hope you'll take some time to ask them questions, learn more about the trip, April 2024. What I say is the cost is $2,000 plus your airline ticket. Ben Bells is right up here, and the mission committee might be interested in helping with something like that. Uh-oh. You want to say?
Yeah, I'm happy to say something about that.
Now's the time. A couple of minutes. I've just got one short video.
So real quick, not to hijack. First of all, being a leader of missions here, I get to see a lot of different mission efforts, and I get to go visit a lot of different works. And a couple years ago, something that you've supported for a long time, coming in kind of new, you have these questions around: are we supporting something? Are we involved in something because that's just what we know, that's what we've done, or is it something that is actually producing fruit and we need to go see? So I had an opportunity 2 years ago to go check out South Africa Bible College and get to see for myself, having seen that. I tell Kirk often, I don't play favorites with our mission efforts. But when I look at our mission statement here, Memorial's mission efforts are for multi-generational growth, both locally and globally, focusing on sharing God's abounding love, biblical truth, and merciful grace found in the gospel message of Jesus Christ. Listen here. By serving humbly, teaching soundly, and discipling others to multiply God's kingdom. All three of those things are super observant and relevant when it comes to SABS. And so, I encourage you. He's talking about the upcoming trips. Philip talked about short-term missions, whether that be here in Houston or it be in South Africa. We really want to encourage people to go see it for themselves, to get involved. And we want to do that, and we actually want to financially help you go do that. Because I can speak from experience, when I've taken people places and we've seen things in person, there's a light bulb that goes off. There's a spirit that's working. I see them light up for Christ and then want to go, and like Mary has said, go again, share other things, see how they can contact other folks. So if you are interested in this effort to SABS, or even some of the other efforts that are ongoing here at Memorial, do please come talk to the missions group. We are more than happy to help, if needed, financially send, because we don't want that to be a burden for you. Because I know once you go and God is at work through you, then that's what we'll provide from that perspective. So anyway, thank you, Kirk. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to give a plug to help those that need it.
Absolutely. I want to go again, so can you financially help? All right, I just want to have one more video for you, and so if the volume up, and just let the students say it best, right?
So with the,